Lyrical Ballads, with a few other poems, by William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. It is the honorable characteristic of poetry that its materials are to be found in every subject which can interest the human mind. The evidence of this fact is to be sought not in the writings of critics, but in those of poets themselves. The majority of the following poems are to be considered as experiments. They were written chiefly with a view to ascertain how far the language of conversation in the middle and lower classes of society is adapted to the purposes of poetic pleasure. Readers accustomed to the gaudiness and inane phraseology of many modern writers, if they persist in reading this book to its conclusion, will perhaps frequently have to struggle with feelings of strangeness and awkwardness. He see, house, Ardbear, Markians. They will look round for poetry, and will be induced to inquire by what species of courtesy these attempts can be permitted to assume that title. It is desirable that such readers, for their own sakes, should not suffer the solitary word poetry, a word of very disputed meaning, to stand in the way of their gratification, but that, while they are perusing this book, they should ask themselves if it contains a natural delineation of human passions, human characters, and human incidents, and if the answer be favorable to the author's wishes, that they should consent to be pleased in spite of that most dreadful enemy to our pleasures, our own pre-established codes of decision. Readers of superior judgment may disapprove of the style in which many of these pieces are executed. It must be expected that many lines and phrases will not exactly suit their taste. It will perhaps appear to them that, wishing to avoid the prevalent fault of the day, the author has sometimes descended too low, and that many of his expressions are too familiar and not of sufficient dignity. It is apprehended that the more conversant the reader is with our elder writers, and with those in modern times who have been the most successful in painting manners and passions, the fewer complaints of this kind will he have to make. An accurate taste in poetry and in all the other arts, Sir Joshua Reynolds has observed, is an acquired talent, which can only be produced by severe thought and a long-continued intercourse with the best models of composition. This is mentioned not with so ridiculous a purpose as to prevent the most inexperienced reader from judging for himself, but merely to temper the rashness of decision, and to suggest that if poetry be a subject on which much time has not been bestowed, the judgment may be erroneous, and that in many cases it necessarily will be so. The tale of Goody Blake and Harry Gill is founded on a well-authenticated fact which happened in Warwickshire. Of the other poems in the collection, it may be proper to say that they are either absolute inventions of the author, or facts which took place within his personal observation, or that of his friends. The poem of the Thorn, as the reader will soon discover, is not supposed to be spoken in the author's own person. The character of the loquacious narrator will sufficiently show itself in the course of the story. The rhyme of the Ancient Mariner was professedly written in imitation of the style, as well as of the spirit of the elder poets, but with a few exceptions, the author believes that the language adopted in it has been equally intelligible for these 3 last centuries. The lines entitled Expostulation and Reply, and those which follow, arose out of conversation with a friend who was somewhat unreasonably attached to modern books of moral philosophy. The rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, in 7 parts. FNT. Argument. How a ship having passed the line was driven by storms to the cold country towards the South Pole, and how from thence she made her course to the tropical latitude of the great Pacific Ocean, and of the strange things that befell, and in what manner the Ancient Mariner came back to his own country. It is an ancient marinere, and he stoppeth, one of 3, by thy long grey beard and thy glittering eye, now wherefore stoppest me? The bridegroom's doors are opened wide, and I am next of kin, the guests are met, the feast is set, mayest hear the merry din. But still he holds the wedding guest. There was a ship, quoth he, nay, if thou'st got a laughsome tale, marinere, come with me. He holds him with his skinny hand. Quoth he, there was a ship. Now get thee hence, thou grey-beard loon, or my staff shall make thee skip. But He holds him with his glittering eye. The wedding guest stood still and listens like a 3 years child. The marinere have his will. The wedding guest sate on a stone. He cannot choose but hear, and thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed marinere. The ship was cheered, the harbor cleared. Merrily did we drop, below the kirk, below the hill, below the lighthouse top. The sun came up upon the left, out of the sea came he, and he shone bright, and on the right went down into the sea. Higher and higher every day, till over the mast at noon, the wedding guest here beat his breast, for he heard the loud bassoon. The bride hath paced into the hall, red as a rose is she, nodding their heads before her goes, the merry minstrelsy. The wedding guest, he beat his breast, yet he cannot choose but hear, and thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed marinere. Listen, stranger, storm and wind, a wind and tempest strong, for days and weeks it played us freaks, like chaff we drove along. Listen, stranger, mist and snow, and it grew wondrous cold, and ice mast high came floating by, as green as emerald. And thros the drips the snowy clips did send a dismal sheen, nae shapes of men nae beasts we ken, the ice was all between. The ice was here, the ice was there, the ice was all around, it cracked and growled, and roared and howled, like noises of a swound. At length did cross an albatross, thorough the fog it came, and an it were a Christian soul, we hailed it in God's name. The mariners gave it biscuit worms, and round it flew, the ice did split with a thunder fit, the helmsman steered us throughs. And a good south wind sprung up behind, the albatross did follow, and every day for food or play, came to the marinere's hollow, one proached hallow. In mist or cloud, on mast or shroud, it perched for vespers, 9, whiles all the night there's fog, smoke white, glimmered the white moonshine. God save thee, ancient marinere, from the fiends that plague thee thus. Why look'st thou so? With my crossbow I shot the albatross. Why shot the albatross? The sun came up upon the right, out of the sea came he, and broad as a weft upon the left went down into the sea. And the good south wind still blew behind, but no sweet bird did follow me any day for food or play, came to the marinere's hollow. And I had done an hellish thing, and it would work 'em woe, for all averred, I had killed the bird that made the breeze to blow. Nay dim, nay red, like God's own head, the glorious sun uprist, then all averred, I had killed the bird that brought the fog and mist. 'Twas right, said they, such birds to slay, that bring the fog and mist. The breezes blew, the white foam flew, the furrow followed free, we were the first that ever burst into that silent sea. Down dropped the breeze, the sails dropped down, 'twas sad, as sad could be, and we did speak only to break the silence of the sea. All in a hot and copper sky, the bloody sun at noon, right up above the mast, did stand, no bigger than the moon. Day after day after day, we stuck, no breath ne motion, as idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. Water, water, everywhere, and all the boards did shrink. Water, water, everywhere, nay, any drop to drink. The very deeps did rot, O Christ, that ever this should be, yea, slimy things did crawl with legs upon the slimy sea. About, in reel and rout, the death fires danced at night, the water, like a witch's oils, burnt green and blue and white. And some in dreams assured were of the spirit that plagued us so, 9 fathom deep he had followed us from the land of mist and snow. And every tongue through's utter drouth was withered at the root, we could not speak, no more, than if we had been choked with soot. Ah, well a day, what evil looks had I from old and young, instead of the cross, the albatross, about my neck was hung. I.e. I saw a something in the sky, no bigger than my fist. At first it seemed a little speck, and then it seemed a mist. I moved, and took at last a certain shape, I wist. A speck, a mist, a shape, I wist. And still it knurred, and it dodged a water sprite. It plunged and tacked and veered, with throat unslacked, with black lips baked, nay. Could we laugh, nay wail, then while through drouth all dumb they stood. I bit my arm and sucked the blood. I bit my arm and sucked the blood, and cried, a sail, a sail. With throat unslacked, with black lips backed agape, they heard me call, Gramercy. They for joy did grin, and all at once their breath drew in, as they were drinking all. She doth not tack from side to side, hither to work us wheel. Withouten wind, withouten tide, she steadies with upright keel. The western wave was all aflame, the day was well nigh done. Almost upon the western wave rested the broad bright sun, when that strange shape drove suddenly betwixt us and the sun. And straight the sun was flecked with bars. Heaven's mother send us grace, as if through's a dungeon grate he peered, with broad and burning face. Alas, thought I, and my heart beat loud, how fast she nurries and nurries. Are those her sails that glance in the sun like restless gossameres? Are these here naked ribs, which flecked the sun that did behind them peer? And are these two all the crew, that woman and her fleshless fear? His bones were black with many a crack, all black and bare, I ween, jet black and bare, save where, with rust, of mouldy damps and charnel crust, they're patched with purple and green. Here her lips are red, her looks are free, here her locks are yellow as gold, her skin is as white as leprosy, and she is far liker death than he, her flesh makes the still air cold. The naked hulk alongside came, and the twain were playing dice. The game is done, I've won, quoth she, and whistled thrice. A gust of wind stirred up behind, and whistled through his bones, through the holes of his eyes, and the hole of his mouth, half whistles and half groans. With never a whisper in the sea off darts the spectre ship, while clomb above the eastern bar, the horned moon, with one bright star, almost atween the tips, even and says, Heen, steth. One after one by the horned moon, listen, O stranger, to me, each turned his face with a ghastly pang, and cursed me with his 4 times 50 living men, with never a sigh or groan, with heavy thump, a lifeless lump, they dropped down, one by one. Their souls did from their bodies fly, they fled to bliss or woe, and every soul it passed me by, like the whiz of my crossbow. If I fear thee, ancient mariner, I fear thy skinny hand, and thou art long and lank and brown, as is the ribbed sea sand, backway, as is the ribbed sea sand. Well coat, I fear thee and thy glittering eye, and thy skinny hand so brown. Fear not, thou wedding guest, this body dropped not down. Alone, all alone on the wide sea, and Christ would take no pity on my soul in agony. The many men so beautiful, and they all dead, did lie, and a million slimy things lived on, and so did I. All. I looked upon the rotting sea, and drew my eyes away. I looked upon the eldritch deck, and there the dead men lay. I looked to heaven, and tried to pray, but, or ever a prayer had gushed, a wicked whisper came and made my heart as dry as dust. I closed my lids and kept them close, till the balls like pulses beat, for the sky and the sea and the sea and the sky lay like a load on my weary eye, and the dead were at my feet. The cold sweat melted from their limbs. Nay rot, nay reek, did they, the look with which they looked on me, had never passed away. An orphan's curse would drag to hell, a spirit from on high, but oh, more horrible than that, is the curse in a dead man's eye. 7 days, 7 nights, I saw that curse, and yet I could not die. The moving moon went up the sky, and nowhere did abide, softly she was going up, and a star or two beside. Her beams bemocked the sultry main, like morning frosts I spread, but where the ship's huge shadow lay, the charmed water burnt alway, a still and awful red. Beyond the shadow of the ship, I watched the water snakes. They moved in tracks of shining white, and when they reared, the elfish light fell off in hoary flakes. Within the shadow of the ship I watched their rich attire, blue, glossy green, and velvet black. They coiled and swam, and every track was a flash of golden fire. O happy living things, no tongue their beauty might declare. A spring of love gushed from my heart, and I blessed them unaware. Sure my kind saint took pity on me, and I blessed them unaware. The self-same moment I could pray, and from my neck so free, the albatross fell off and sank like lead into the sea. O sleep, it is a gentle thing beloved from pole to pole. To Mary Queen, the praise be Yevon, she sent the gentle sleep from heaven that slid into my soul. The silly buckets on the deck, that had so long remained, I dreamt that they were filled with dew, and when I awoke, it rained. My lips were wet, my throat was cold, my garments all were dank, sure I had drunken in my dreams, and still my body drank. I moved and could not feel my limbs, I was so light, almost I thought that I had died in sleep, and was a blessed ghost. The roaring wind, it roared far off, it did not come anear, but with its sound it shook the sails that were so thin and sere. The upper air burst into life, and 100 fireflags sheen to and fro, they are hurried about, and to and fro, and in and out, the stars dance on between. The coming wind doth roar more loud, the sails do sigh, like sedge, the rain pours down from one black cloud, and the moon is at its edge. Hark, hark, the thick black cloud is cleft, and the moon is at its side. Like water shot from some high crag, the lightning falls with never a jag, a river steep and wide. The strong wind reached the ship, it roared, and dropped down, like a stone, beneath the lightning and the moon. The dead men gave a groan. They groaned, they stirred, they all uprose, ne spake, ne moved their eyes. It had been strange, even in a dream, to have seen those dead men rise. The helmsman steered, the ship mouthed on, yet never a breeze up blew. The mariners all 'gan work the ropes, where they were wont to do. They raised their limbs like lifeless tools. We were a ghastly crew. The body of my brother's son stood by me knee to knee. The body and I pulled at one rope, but he said naught to me, and I quake to think of my own voice, how frightful it would be. The daylight dawned, they dropped their arms and clustered round the mast. Sweet sounds rose slowly through their mouths, and from their bodies passed. Around, around, flew each sweet sound, then darted to the sun. Slowly the sounds came back again, now mixed, now one by one. Sometimes, a dropping from the sky, I heard the lavrock sing. Sometimes all little birds that are, how they seemed to fill the sea and air with their sweet jargoning. And now 'twas like all instruments, now like a lonely flute, and now it is an angel song that makes the heavens be mute. It ceases, yet still the sails made on a pleasant noise till noon, a noise like of a hidden brook, in the leafy month of June, that to the sleeping woods all night singeth a quiet tune. Listen, oh, listen, thou wedding guest, mariner, thou hast thy will, for that which comes out of thine eye doth make my body and soul to be still. Never sadder tale was told to a man of woman born, sadder and wiser, thou wedding guest, thou'lt rise tomorrow morn. Never sadder tale was heard by a man of woman born. The mariners all returned to work, as silent as beforn. The mariners all 'gan pull the ropes, but look at me they nold, thought I am as thin as air, they cannot me behold. Till noon we silently sailed on, yet never a breeze did breathe. Slowly and smoothly went the ship, moved onward from beneath. Under the keel, 9 fathom deep, from the land of mist and snow, the spirit slid, and it was he that made the ship to go. The sails at noon left off their tune, and the ship stood still also. The sun, right up above the mast, had fixed her to the ocean, but in a minute she 'gan stir with a short, uneasy motion. backwards and forwards half her length, with a short, uneasy motion. Then, like a pawing horse let go, she made a sudden bound, it flung the blood into my head, and I fell into a swound. How long in that same fit I lay, I have not to declare, but ere my living life returned, I heard, and in my soul discerned, two voices in the air. Is it he? Quoth one, is this the man? By him who died on cross, with his cruel bow he laid full low, the harmless albatross. Albatross. The spirit who bideth by himself, in the land of mist and snow, he loved the bird that loved the man, who shot him with his bow. The other was a softer voice, as soft as honeydew, quoth he, the man hath penance done, and penance more will do. The first voice, but tell me, speak again, thy soft response renewing, what makes that ship drive on so fast, what is the ocean doing? Second voice, still as a slave before his lord, the ocean hath no blast, his great bright eye most silently, up to the moon is cast. All dawed, if he may know which way to go, for she guides him smooth or grim. See, brother, see, how graciously she looketh down on him. First voice, but why drives on that ship so fast, withouten wave or wind? Second voice, one productor, one bile, or one bile and closes from behind, and closes from behind. Fly, brother, fly, more high, or we shall be belated, for slow and slow that ship will go, when the marinere's trance is abated. I woke, and we were sailing on, as in a gentle weather, 'twas night, calm night, the moon was high, the dead men stood together. All stood together on the deck, for a charnel dungeon fitter, all fixed on me their stony eyes, that in the moon did glitter. The pang, the curse, with which they died, had never passed away, I could not draw my een from theirs, ne turn them up to pray. And in its time the spell was snapped, and I could move my een, I looked far forth, but little saw, of what might else be seen. Like one, that on a lonely road, doth walk in fear and dread, and having once turned round, walks on, and turns no more his head, because he knows, a frightful fiend, doth close behind him tread. But soon there breathed a wind on me, ne sound, ne motion made, its path was not upon the sea, in ripple or in shade. Quote, it raised my hair, it fanned my cheek, like a meadow gale of spring, it mingled strangely with my fears, yet it felt like a welcoming. Swiftly, swiftly flew the ship, yet she sailed softly too, sweetly, sweetly blew the breeze, on me alone it blew. O dream of joy! Is this indeed the lighthouse top I see? Is this the hill? Is this the kirk? Is this mine own country? We drifted o'er the harbour bar, and I with sobs did pray, oh, let me be awake, my God, or let me sleep alway. The harbour bay was clear as glass, so smoothly it was strewn, and on the bay the moonlight lay, and the shadow of the moon. The moonlight bay was white all o'er, till rising from the same, full many shapes, that shadows were, like as of torches came. A little distance from the prow, those dark red shadows were, but soon I saw that my own flesh was red, as in a glare. She be at. I turned my head in fear and dread, and by the holy rood, the bodies had advanced, and now, before the mast, they stood. They lifted up their stiff right arms, they held them straight and tight, and each right arm burnt like a torch that's borne upright. Their stony eyeballs glittered on, in the red and smoky light. I prayed and turned my head away. Forth, looking as before, there was no breeze upon the bay, no wave against the shore. The rock shone bright, the kirk no less, that stands above the rock, the moonlight steeped in silentness, the steady weathercock. And the bay was white with silent light, till rising from the same full many shapes, that shadows were, in crimson colors came. A little distance from the prow, those crimson shadows were, I turned my eyes upon the deck. O Christ, what saw I there? Each corse lay flat, lifeless and flat, and by the holy rood a man all light, a seraph man, on every corse there stood. This seraph band, each waved his hand. It was a heavenly sight. They stood as signals to the land, each one a lovely light. This seraph band, each waved his hand. No voice did they impart, no voice, but oh, the silence sank, like music on my heart. Eftsones, I heard the dash of oars, I heard the pilot's cheer, my head was turned, perforce away, and I saw a boat appear. Then vanished all the lovely lights, the bodies rose anew, with silent pace each to his place, came back the ghastly crew. The wind, that shade nor motion made, on me alone it blew. The pilot, and the pilot's boy, I heard them coming fast. Dear Lord in heaven, it was a joy, the dead men could not blast. I saw a third, I heard his voice, it is the hermit good. He singeth loud his godly hymns that he makes in the wood. Will shrieve my soul, he'll wash away the albatross's blood. V. This hermit good lives in that wood, which slopes down to the sea. How loudly his sweet voice he rears. He loves to talk with mariners that come from a far country. He kneels at morn and noon and eve. He hath a cushion plump. It is the moss that wholly hides the rotted old oak stump. The fruit and his a priester 40 tree. The skiff boat nerd, I heard them talk. Why, this is strange, I trow. Where are those lights so many and fair? That signal made but now. Strange, by my faith, the hermit said, and they answered, not our cheer. The planks look warped, and see those sails, how thin they are and sere. I never saw aught like to them, unless perchance it were the skeletons of leaves that lag my forest brook along, when the ivy tod is heavy with snow, and the owlet whoops to the wolf below, that eats the she-wolf's young. Dear Lord, it has a fiendish look. The pilot made reply, I am afeard. Push on, said the hermit cheerily. Hesitation, said the hermit cheerily. The boat came closer to the ship, but I ne spake ne stirred. The boat came close beneath the ship, and straight a sound was heard. All thing came for. Under the water it rumbled on, still louder and more dread. It reached the ship, it split the bay, the ship went down like lead. Stunned by that loud and dreadful sound, which sky and ocean smote, like one that hath been 7 days drowned, my body lay afloat, but, swift as dreams, myself I found within the pilot's boat. Upon the whirl, where sank the ship, the boat spun round and round, and all was still, save that the hill was telling of the sound. I moved my lips, the pilot shrieked, and fell down in a fit. The holy hermit raised his eyes, and prayed where he did sit. I took the oars, the pilot's boy, who now doth crazy go, laughed loud and long, and all the while his eyes went to and fro. Ha, ha, quoth he, full plain I see, the devil knows how to row. And now all in mine own country I stood on the firm land. The hermit stepped forth from the boat, and scarcely he could stand. One chacked, "Oh, shrieve me, holy man." The hermit crossed his brow. "Say quick," quoth he, "I bid thee say, what manner man art thou?" Forthwith, this frame of mine was wrenched with a woeful agony, which forced me to begin my tale, and then it left me free. Since then, at an uncertain hour, now oft times and now fewer, that anguish comes and makes me tell my ghastly adventure. I pass, like night, from land to land. I have strange power of speech. The moment that his face I see, I know the man that must hear me. To him my tale I teach. What loud uproar bursts from that door! The wedding guests are there, but in the garden bower the bride and bridemaid singing are, and hark the little vesper bell, which biddeth me to prayer. What biddeth me to prayer? O wedding guest, this soul hath been alone on a wide, wide sea, So lonely 'twas, that God himself scarce seemed there to be. Oh, sweeter than the marriage feast, 'tis sweeter far to me, to walk together to the kirk, with a goodly company. To walk together to the kirk, and all together pray, while each to his great Father bends, old men, and babes, and loving friends, and youths and maidens gay. Farewell, farewell! But this I tell, to thee, thou wedding guest, he prayeth well who loveth well, both man and bird and beast. He prayeth best who loveth best, all things both great and small, for the dear God, who loveth us, he made and loveth all. The mariner, whose eye is bright, whose beard with age is hoar, is gone, and now the wedding guest. And now the wedding guest turned from the bridegroom's door. He went, like one that hath been stunned, and is of sense forlorn, a sadder and a wiser man, he rose the morrow morn. The Foster Mother's Tale, a dramatic fragment. Foster Mother. I never saw the man whom you describe. Maria. 'Tis strange, he spake of you familiarly, as mine and Albert's common foster mother. Foster Mother. Now blessings on the man, whoe'er he be, that joined your names with mine. O my sweet lady, as often as I think of those dear times, when you two little ones would stand at eve, on each side of my chair, and make me learn all you had learnt in the day, and how to talk, in gentle phrase, then bid me sing to you, 'tis more like heaven to come than what has been. Maria. O my dear mother, this strange man has left me, troubled with wilder fancies than the moon breeds and the love-sick maid who gazes at it, till lost in inward vision, with wet eye, she gazes idly. Foster Mother. Can no one hear? It is a perilous tale. Maria. No one. Foster Mother. My husband's father told it me. Poor old Leone, angels rest his soul, he was a woodman, and could fell and saw with lusty arm. You know that huge round beam which props the hanging wall of the old chapel. Beneath that tree, while yet it was a tree, he found a baby wrapped in mosses, lined with thistlebeards, and such small locks of wool as hang on brambles. Well, he brought him home, and reared him at the then Lord Velez's cost. And so the babe grew up a pretty boy, but most unteachable, and never learnt a prayer, nor told a bead, but knew the names of birds, and mocked to their notes, and whistled, as he were a bird himself. And all the autumn 'twas his only play, to get the seeds of wild flowers, and to plant them, with earth and water, on the stumps of trees. A friar, who gathered simples in the wood, a gray-haired man, he loved this little boy, the boy loved him. And, when the friar taught him, he soon could write with the pen, and from that time lived chiefly at the convent or the castle, so he became a very learned youth. But oh, poor wretch! He read, and read, and read, till his brain turned, and ere his 20th year he had unlawful thoughts of many things, and though he prayed, he never loved to pray with holy men, nor in a holy place. But yet his speech, it was so soft and sweet, the late Lord Velez ne'er was wearied with him. And once, as by the north side of the chapel, they stood together, chained in deep discourse, the earth heaved under them with such a groan, that the wall tottered and had well nigh fallen, right on their heads. My lord was sorely frightened. A fever seized him, and he made confession of all the heretical and lawless talk, which brought this judgment, so the youth was seized, and cast into that hole. My husband's father sobbed like a child. It almost broke his heart. And once as he was working in the cellar, he heard a voice distinctly. 'Twas the youth's, who sung a doleful song about green fields, how sweet it were on lake or wild savannah, to hunt for food and be a naked man, and wander up and down at liberty. He always doted on the youth, and now his love grew desperate, and defying death, he made that cunning entrance I described, and the young man escaped. Maria. 'Tis a sweet tale, such as would lull a listening child to sleep, his rosy face besoiled with unwiped tears. And what became of him? Foster. Mother. He went on shipboard with those bold voyagers who made discovery of golden lands. Leone's younger brother went likewise, and when he returned to Spain he told Leone that the poor mad youth, soon after they arrived in that new world, in spite of his dissuasion, seized a boat, and all alone set sail by silent moonlight, up a great river, great as any sea, and ne'er was heard of more. But 'tis supposed he lived and died among the savage men. Lines left upon a seat, in a yew tree which stands near the lake of Esthwaite, on a desolate part of the shore, yet commanding a beautiful prospect. Nay, traveller, rest. This lonely yew tree stands far from all human dwelling. What if here no sparkling rivulet spread the verdant herb? What if these barren boughs the bee not loves? Yet, if the wind breathes soft, the curling waves that break against the shore shall lull thy mind, by one soft impulse saved from vacancy. Who he was that piled these stones, and with the mossy sod first covered o'er, and taught this aged tree, now wild, to bend its arms in circling shade, I well remember. Horse-stirred peast, he was one who owned no common soul. In youth, by genius nursed, and big with lofty views, he to the world went forth pure in his heart, against the taint of dissolute tongues, against jealousy and hate and scorn, against all enemies prepared, all but neglect, high cest. And so, his spirit damped, at once with rash disdain he turned away, and with the food of pride sustained his soul in solitude. Stranger, these gloomy boughs had charms for him, and here he loved to sit, his only visitants a straggling sheep, the stone chat or the glancing sandpiper. And on these barren rocks, with juniper and heath and thistle, thinly sprinkled o'er, fixing his downward eye, he many an hour a morbid pleasure nourished, tracing here an emblem of his own unfruitful life, and lifting up his head, he then would gaze on the more distant scene. How lovely 'tis thou seest, and he would gaze till it became far lovelier, and his heart could not sustain the beauty still more beauteous. Nor, that time, would he forget those beings, to whose minds, warm from the labors of benevolence, the world, and man himself, appeared a scene of kindred loveliness. Then he would sigh, with mournful joy, to think that others felt what he must never feel, and so, lost man. On visionary views would fancy feed, till his eyes streamed with tears. In this deep vale he died, this seat his only monument. If thou be one whose heart the holy forms of young imagination have kept pure, stranger, henceforth be warned, and know that pride, howe'er disguised in its own majesty, is littleness, that he who feels contempt for any living thing hath faculties which he has never used, that thought with him is in its infancy. The man, whose eye is ever on himself, doth look on one, the least of nature's works, one who might move the wise man to that scorn which wisdom holds unlawful, ever instructed that true knowledge leads to love, true dignity abides with him alone, who, in the silent hour of inward thought, can still suspect and still revere himself in lowliness of heart. The Nightingale, a conversational poem, written in April 1798. No cloud, no relique of the sunken day distinguishes the west, no long thin slip of sullen light, no obscure trembling hues. Come, we will rest on this old mossy bridge. You see the glimmer of the stream beneath, but hear no murmuring, it flows silently, o'er its soft bed of verdure. All is still, a balmy night. And though the stars be dim, yet let us think upon the vernal showers that gladden the green earth, and we shall find a pleasure in the dimness of the stars. And hark, the nightingale begins its song, most musical, most melancholy. One bees. Bird, a melancholy bird. Oh, idle thought, in nature there is nothing melancholy. But some night-wandering man, whose heart was pierced with the remembrance of a grievous wrong, or slow distemper or neglected love, and so, poor wretch, filled all things with himself, and made all gentle sounds tell back the tale of his own sorrows, he, and such as he, first named these notes a melancholy strain, and many a poet echoes the conceit. Poet, who hath been building up the rhyme, when he had better far have stretched his limbs beside a brook in mossy forest, dell by sun or moonlight to the influxes of shapes and sounds and shifting elements, surrendering his whole spirit of his song, and of his fame, forgetful. So his fame should share in nature's immortality, a venerable thing, and so his song should make all nature lovelier, and itself be loved like nature. But 'twill not be so, and youths and maidens most poetical, who lose the deepening twilights of the spring, in ballrooms and hot theaters they still, full of meek sympathy must heave their sighs, or Philomella's pity-pleading strains. My friend, and my friend's sister, I. We have learnt a different lore. We may not thus profane nature's sweet voices, always full of love and joyance. 'Tis the merry nightingale that crowds, and hurries, and precipitates, with fast thick warble, his delicious notes as he were fearful, that an April night would be too short for him to utter forth his love chant, and disburthen his full soul, of all its music, with topping vary. And I know a grove, of large extent, hard by a castle huge, which the great lord inhabits not, and so, this grove is wild with tangling underwood, and the trim walks are broken up, and grass, thin grass and kingcups grow within the paths. But never elsewhere in one place I knew so many nightingales, and far and near, in wood and thicket over the wide grove, they answer and provoke each other's songs, with skirmish and capricious passagings, and murmurs musical and swift jug. I and one low piping sound, more sweet than all. You might almost forget it was not day, on moonlight bushes, whose dewy leaflets are but half disclosed. You may perchance behold them on the twigs, their bright, bright eyes, their eyes both bright and full, glistening, while many a glowworm in the shade lights up her love torch. A most gentle maid who dwelleth in her hospitable home, hard by the castle, and at latest eve, even like a lady vowed, and dedicate to something more than nature in the grove, glides through the pathways, she knows all their notes, that gentle maid. And oft, a moment's space, what time the moon was lost behind a cloud, hath heard a pause of silence, till the moon emerging hath awakened earth and sky, with one sensation, and those wakeful birds have all burst forth in choral minstrelsy, as if one quick and sudden gale had swept 100 airy harps. And she hath watched many a nightingale perch giddily on blosmy twig still swinging from the breeze, and to that motion tune his wanton song like tipsy joy that reels with tossing head. Farewell, O warbler, till tomorrow eve, and you, my friends, farewell, a short farewell. We have been loitering long and pleasantly, and now for our dear homes, dotting morning, or our dear homes. That strain again, full fain it would delay me. My dear babe, who, capable of no articulate sound, mars all things with his imitative lisp, how he would place his hand beside his ear, his little hand, the small forefinger up, and bid us listen, and I deem it wise to make him nature's playmate. He knows well the evening star. And once when he awoke, in most distressful mood, some inward pain had made up that strange thing, an infant's dream. I hurried with him to our orchard plot, and he beholds the moon, and hushed at once, suspends his sobs, and laughs most silently, while his fair eyes, that swam with undropped tears, did glitter in the yellow moonbeam. Well, it is a father's tale. But if that heaven should give me life, his childhood shall grow up, familiar with these songs, that with the night he may associate joy. Once more farewell, sweet nightingale. Once more, my friends, farewell. Knee 2. Most musical, most melancholy. This passage in Milton possesses an excellence far superior to that of mere description. It is spoken in the character of the melancholy man, and has therefore a dramatic propriety. The author makes this remark to rescue himself from the charge of having alluded with levity to a line in Milton, a charge than which none could be more painful to him, except perhaps that of having ridiculed his Bible. The female vagrant. By Derwent's side my father's cottage stood, the woman thus her artless story told, one field, a flock, and what the neighboring flood supplied, to him were more than mines of gold. Light was my sleep, my days in transport rolled, with thoughtless joy I stretched along the shore, my father's nets, or watched, when from the fold, he o'er the cliffs I led my fleecy store, a dizzy depth below his boat and twinkling oar. My father was a good and pious man, an honest man by honest parents bred, and I believe that, soon as I began to lisp, he made me kneel beside my bed, and in his hearing there my prayers I said, and afterwards by my good father taught, I read, and loved the books in which I read. I see, all age tranced, for books in every neighboring house I sought, and nothing to my mind a sweeter pleasure brought. Can I forget what charms did once adorn my garden, stored with peas, and mint, and thyme, and rose and lily for the Sabbath morn? The Sabbath bells and their delightful chime, the gambols and wild freaks at shearing time, my hen's rich nest through long grass scarce espied, the cowslip gathering at May's dewy prime, the swans that, when I sought the waterside, from far to meet me came, spreading their snowy pride. The staff I yet remember, which upbore the bending body of my active sire, his seat beneath the honeyed sycamore, when the bees hummed, and chair by winter fire, when market morning came, the neat attire, with which, though bent on haste, myself I decked, my watchful dog, who starts of furious ire, when stranger passed, so often I have checked, the red breast known for years, which at my casement pecked. The suns of 20 summers danced along, ah, little marked, how fast they rolled away, then rose a mansion proud our woods among, and cottage after cottage owned its sway, no joy to see a neighboring house, or stray, through pastures not his own, the master took, my father dared his greedy wish gainsay, he loved his old hereditary nook, and ill could I the thought of such sad parting brook. But, when he had refused the proffered gold, to cruel injuries he became a prey, sore traversed in whate'er he bought and sold, his troubles grew upon him day by day, till all his substance fell into decay, his little range of water was denied. To first all but the bed where his old body lay, all was seized, and weeping, side by side, we sought a home, where we uninjured might abide. Can I forget that miserable hour, when from the last hilltop my sire surveyed, peering above the trees, the steeple tower, that on his marriage day sweet music made? Till then he hoped his bones might there be laid, close by my mother in their native bowers, bidding me trust in God. He stood and prayed, I could not pray, through tears that fell in showers, glimmered our dear loved home, alas, Oris Torges, for tears and figuratas, or as topic, and even court those intenues, or striving writing for, I tribus that he swore to the only sound than re 59, however you. There was a youth whom I had loved so long, that when I loved him not, I cannot say, mid the green mountains, many and many a song, we two had sung, like little birds in May. When we began to tire of childish play, we seemed still more and more to prize each other, we talked of marriage and our marriage day, and I, in truth, did love him like a brother, for never could I hope to meet with such another. His father said, that to a distant town he must repair, to ply the artist's trade. What tears of bitter grief till then unknown, what tender vows our last sad kiss delayed, to him we turned, we had no other aid. Like one revived, upon his neck I wept, and her whom he had loved in joy he said, he well could love in grief, his faith he kept, and in a quiet home once more my father slept. 4 years each day, with daily bread, was blessed, by constant toil and constant prayer supplied. 3 lovely infants lay upon my breast, and often viewing their sweet smiles I sighed, and knew not why. My happy father died, when sad distress reduced the children's meal, thrice happy. That from him the grave did hide, the empty loom, cold hearth, and silent wheel, and tears that flowed for ills, which patience could not heal. 'Twas a hard change, an evil time was come, we had no hope, and no relief could gain. But soon, with proud parade, the noisy drum beat round to sweep the streets of want and pain. My husband's arms now only served to strain me and his children hungering in his view. In such dismay my prayers and tears were vain. To join those miserable men he flew, and now to the sea-coast, with numbers more, we drew. Their foul neglect for months and months we bore, nor yet the crowded fleet its anchor stirred. Green fields before us and our native shore, by fever, from polluted air incurred, ravage was made, for which no knell was heard. Fondly we wished, and wished away, nor knew, mid that long sickness and those hopes deferred, that happier days we never more must view. The parting signal streamed, at last the land withdrew. But from delay, the summer calms were past. On as we drove, the equinoctial deep ran mountains, high before the howling blast. We gazed with terror on the gloomy sleep of them that perished in the whirlwind's sweep, untaught that soon such anguish must ensue, our hopes such harvest of affliction reap, that we the mercy of the waves should rue. We reached the western world a poor devoted crew. Oh, dreadful price of being to resign all that is dear in being! Better far, in want's most lonely cave till death, to pine, unseen, unheard, unwatched by any star, or in the streets and walks where proud men are. Better our dying bodies to obtrude, than dog-like, waiting at the heels of war, protract a cursed existence, with the brood, that lap, their very nourishment, their brother's blood. The pains and plagues that on our heads came down, disease and famine, agony and fear, in wood or wilderness, in camp or town, it would thy brain unsettle even to hear. All perished, all, in one remorseless year, husband and children. One, by sword and ravenous plague, all perished, every tear dried up, despairing, desolate, on board. Peaceful as some immeasurable plain, by the first beams of dawning light impressed, in the calm sunshine slept the glittering main. The very ocean has its hour of rest, that comes not to the human mourner's breast. Remote from man, and storms of mortal care, a heavenly silence did the waves invest. I looked and looked along the silent air, until it seemed to bring a joy to my despair. Ah, how unlike those late terrific sleeps and groans that rage of racking famine spoke, where looks inhuman dwelt on festering heaps, the breathing pestilence that rose like smoke, the shriek that from the distant battle broke. The mind's dire earthquake, and the pallid host, driven by the bomb's incessant thunderstroke, to loathsome vaults, where heart-sick anguish tossed, hope died, and fear itself in agony was lost. Yet does that burst of woe congeal my frame, when the dark streets appeared to heave and gape, while like a sea the storming army came, and fire from hell reared his gigantic shape, and murder, by the ghastly gleam, and rape seized their joint prey, the mother and the child. But from these crazing thoughts my brain escape. For weeks the balmy air breathed soft and mild, and on the gliding vessel, heaven and ocean smiled. Some mighty gulf of separation past, I seemed transported to another world. A thought resigned with pain, when from the mast, the impatient mariner the sail unfurled, and whistling, called the wind that hardly curled. The silent sea. From the sweet thoughts of home, and from all hope I was forever hurled. For me, farthest from earthly port to roam, was best, could I but shun the spot where man might come. And oft, robbed of my perfect mind, I thought at last my feet a resting place had found. Here will I weep in peace, so fancy wrought, roaming the illimitable waters round, here watch of every human friend disowned. All day my ready tomb the ocean flood. To break my dream, the vessel reached its bound, and homeless near 1,000 homes, I stood, and near 1,000 tables pined, and wanted food. By grief enfeebled was I turned adrift, helpless as sailor cast on desert rock, nor morsel to my mouth that day did lift, nor dared my hand at any door to knock. I lay, where with his drowsy mates the cock, from the cross timber of an outhouse hung, how dismal tolled, that night, the city clock. At morn my sick heart hunger scarcely stung, nor to the beggar's language could I frame my tongue. So passed another day, and so the third. Then did I try, in vain, the crowd's resort. In deep despair by frightful wishes stirred near the seaside, I reached a ruined fort. There pains which nature could no more support, with blindness linked, did on my vitals fall, dizzy my brain, with interruption short of hideous sense. I sunk, nor step could crawl, and thence was borne away to neighboring hospital. Recovery came with food, but still my brain was weak, nor of the past had memory. Why? I heard my neighbors in their beds complain of many things which never troubled me, of feet still bustling round with busy glee, of looks where common kindness had no part, of service done with careless cruelty, fretting the fever round the languid heart, and groans, which, as they said, would make a dead man start. These things just served to stir the torpid sense, nor pain nor pity in my bosom raised. Memory, though slow, returned with strength, and thence dismissed, again on open day I gazed, at houses, men, and common light, amazed. The lanes I sought, and as the sun retired, came, where beneath the trees a faggot blazed. The wild brood saw me weep, my fate inquired, and gave me food and rest, more welcome, more desired. My heart is touched to think that men like these, the rude earth's tenants, were my first relief. How kindly did they paint their vagrant ease, and their long holiday that feared not grief, for all belonged to all, and each was chief. No plough their sinews strained, on grating road, no wain they drove, and yet the yellow sheaf in every vale for their delight was stowed. For them, in nature's meads, the milky udder flowed. Semblance, with straw and pawn-eared ass, they made of potters wandering on from door to door, but life of happier sort to me portrayed, and other joys my fancy to allure. The bagpipe dinning on the midnight moor, in barn uplighted, and companions boon, well met from far with revelry secure, in depth of forest glade, when jocund June rolled fast along the sky, his warm and genial moon. But ill it suited me, in journey dark, o'er moor and mountain, midnight theft to hatch, to charm the surly house dog's faithful bark. Or hang on tiptoe at the lifted latch, the gloomy lantern, and the dim blue match, the black disguise, the warning whistle shrill, and ear still busy on its nightly watch, were not for me, brought up in nothing ill. Besides, on griefs so fresh my thoughts were brooding still. What could I do, unaided and unblessed? Poor father, gone was every friend of thine, and kindred of dead husband are at best small help, and, after marriage such as mine, with little kindness would to me incline. Ill was I then for toil or service fit, with tears whose course no effort could confine, by highway side forgetful would I sit, whole hours my idle arms in moping sorrow knit. I lived upon the mercy of the fields, and oft of cruelty the sky accused, on hazard, or what general bounty yields, now coldly given, now utterly refused, the fields I for my bed have often used. But, what afflicts my peace with keenest ruth is, that I have my inner self abused, foregone the home delight of constant truth, and clear and open soul, so prized in fearless youth. 3 years a wanderer, often have I viewed, in tears, the sun towards that country tend, where my poor heart lost all its fortitude, and now across this moor my steps I bend. Oh, tell me whither, for no earthly friend have I. She ceased, and weeping turned away, as if because her tale was at an end. She wept, because she had no more to say, of that perpetual weight which on her spirit lay. 2. Several of the lakes in the north of England are let out to different fishermen, in parcels marked out by imaginary lines drawn from rock to rock. Goody Blake and Harry Gill, a true story. Oh, what's the matter, what's the matter? What isn't that ails young Harry Gill? That evermore his teeth, they chatter, 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 still. Of waistcoats Harry has no lack, good duffel grey, and flannel fine, he has a blanket on his back, and coats enough to smother 9. In March, December, and in July, 'tis all the same with Harry Gill, the neighbors tell, and tell you truly, his teeth, they chatter, chatter still. At night, at morning, and at noon, 'tis all the same with Harry Gill, beneath the sun, beneath the moon, his teeth they chatter, chatter still. Young Harry was a lusty drover, and who so stout of limb as he, his cheeks were red as ruddy clover, his voice was like the voice of three. Auld Goody Blake was old and poor, all fed she was, and thinly clad, and any man who passed her door might see how poor a hut she had. All day she spun in her poor dwelling, and then her 3 hours' work at night. Alas, 'twas hardly worth the telling, it would not pay for candlelight. This woman dwelt in Dorsetshire, her hut was on a cold hillside, and in that country coals are dear, for they come far by wind and tide. By the same fire to boil their pottage, 2 poor old dames, as I have known, will often live in one small cottage, but she, poor woman, dwelt alone. 'Twas well enough when summer came, the long, warm, lightsome summer day, then at her door the canty dame would sit, as any linnet gay. But when the ice our streams did fetter, oh! then how her old bones would shake. You would have said, if you had met her, 'twas a hard time for Goody Blake. Her evenings then were dull and dead, sad case it was, as you may think, for very cold to go to bed, and then for cold not sleep a wink. Oh joy for her, when ere in winter, the winds at night had made a rout, and scattered many a lusty splinter, and many a rotten bough about. Yet never had she, well or sick, as every man who knew her says, a pile before hand, wood or stick, enough to warm her for 3 days. Now, when the frost was past enduring, and made her poor old bones to ache, could anything be more alluring than an old hedge to Goody Blake? And now and then, it must be said, when her old bones were cold and chill, she left her fire, or left her bed, to seek the hedge of Harry Gill. Now Harry he had long suspected this trespass of old Goody Blake, and vowed that she should be detected, and he on her would vengeance take. And oft from his warm fire he'd go, and to the fields his road would take, and there, at night, in frost and snow, he watched to seize old Goody Blake. And once, behind a rick of barley, thus looking out did Harry stand. The moon was full and shining clearly, and crisp with frost the stubble land. Amanine, he hears a noise, he's all awake. Again, on tiptoe down the hill, he softly creeps. 'Tis Goody Blake, she's at the hedge of Harry Gill. Right glad was he when he beheld her. Stick after stick did Goody pull. He stood behind a bush of elder till she had filled her apron full. When with her load she turned about, the by-road back again to take, he started forward with a shout, and sprang upon poor Goody Blake. And fiercely by the arm he took her, and by the arm he held her fast, and fiercely by the arm he shook her, and cried, I've caught you then at last. Then Goody, who had nothing said, her bundle from her lap let fall, and kneeling on the sticks, she prayed to God, that is the judge of all. She prayed, her withered hand uprearing, while Harry held her by the arm. God, who art never out of hearing, oh may he never more be warm. The cold, cold moon above her head, thus on her knees did Goody pray. Young Harry heard what she had said, and icy cold he turned away. He went complaining all the morrow, that he was cold and very chill, his face was gloom, his heart was sorrow. Alas, that day for Harry Gill! That day he wore a riding coat, but not a whit. The warmer he, another, was on Thursday brought, and ere the Sabbath he had 3. 'Twas all in vain, a useless matter, and blankets were about him pinned, yet still his jaws and teeth they clatter, like a loose casement in the wind. And Harry's flesh it fell away, and all who see him say 'tis plain, that, live as long as live he may, he never will be warm again. No word to any man he utters, a bed or up, to young or old, but ever to himself he mutters, poor Harry Gill is very cold. A bed or up, by night or day, his teeth they chatter, chatter still. Now think, ye farmers all, I pray, of Goody Blake and Harry Gill. Lines written at a small distance from my house, and sent by my little boy, to the person to whom they are addressed. It is the first mild day of March, each minute sweeter than before. The redbreast sings from the tall larch that stands beside our door. 8. There is a blessing in the air, which seems a sense of joy to yield to the bare trees, and mountains bare, and grass in the green field. My sister, 'tis a wish of mine, now that our morning meal is done, make haste, your morning task resign, come forth and feel the sun. Edward will come with you, and pray Put on with speed your woodland dress, and bring no book, for this one day we'll give to idleness. No joyless forms shall regulate our living calendar. We from today, my friend, will date the opening of the year. Love, now in universal birth, from heart to heart is stealing, from earth to man, from man to earth. It is the hour of feeling. One moment now may give us more than 50 years of reason. Our minds shall drink at every pore the spirit of the season. Some silent laws our hearts may make, which they shall long obey. We for the year to come may take our temper from today. And from the blessed power that rolls about, below, above, will frame the measure of our souls. They shall be tuned to love. Then come, my sister, come, I pray, with speed put on your woodland dress, and bring no book, for this one day we'll give to idleness. Simon Lee, the old huntsman, with an incident in which he was concerned. In the sweet shire of Cardigan, not far from pleasant Ivorhall, an old man dwells, a little man. I've heard he once was tall. Of years he has upon his back, no doubt, a burthen weighty. He says he is 70, but others say he's 80. A long blue livery coat has he, that's fair behind and fair before. Yet meet him where you will, you see at once that he is poor. Full 25 years he lived, a running huntsman merry, and, though he has but one eye left, his cheek is like a cherry. No man like him the horn could sound, and no man was so full of glee, to say the least, 4 counties round had heard of Simon Lee. His master's dead, and no one now dwells in the hall of Ivor. Men, dogs, and horses, all are dead. He is the sole survivor. What's left? His hunting feats have him bereft of his right eye, as you may see, and then, what limbs those feats have left to poor old Simon Lee. He has no son, he has no child. His wife, an aged woman, lives with him, near the waterfall, upon the village common. And he is lean and he is sick, his little body's half awry, his ankles they are swoln and thick, his legs are thin and dry. When he was young he little knew of husbandry or tillage, and now he's forced to work, though weak, the weakest in the village. He all the country could outrun, could leave both man and horse behind, and often, ere the race was done, he reeled and was stone blind. And still there's something in the world at which his heart rejoices, for when the chiming hounds are out, he dearly loves their voices. Old Ruth works out of doors with him, and does what Simon cannot do, for she, not over stout of limb, is stouter of the two. And though you with your utmost skill from labor could not wean them, alas, 'tis very little, all which they can do between them. Beside their moss-grown hut of clay, not 20 paces from the door, a scrap of land they have, but they are poorest of the poor. This scrap of land he from the heath enclosed when he was stronger. But what avails the land to them, which they can till no longer? Few months of life has he in store, as he to you will tell, for still, the more he works, the more his poor old ankles swell. My gentle reader, I perceive how patiently you've waited, and I'm afraid that you expect some tale will be related. O reader, had you in your mind such stores as silent thought can bring, O gentle reader, you would find a tale in everything. What more I have to say is short, I hope you'll kindly take it. It is no tale, but should you think, perhaps a tale you'll make it. One summer day I chanced to see this old man doing all he could about the root of an old tree, a stump of rotten wood. The mattock tottered in his hand, so vain was his endeavor, that at the root of the old tree he might have worked forever. You're overtasked, good Simon Lee, give me your tool. To him I said, and at the word right, gladly he received my proffered aid. I struck, and with a single blow, the tangled root I severed, which the poor old man so long and vainly had endeavored. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The tears into his eyes were brought, and thanks and praises seemed to run so fast out of his heart, I thought, they never would have done. I've heard of hearts unkind, kind deeds, with coldness still returning. Alas, the gratitude of men has oftener left me mourning. Anecdote for fathers, shewing how the art of lying may be taught. I have a boy of 5 years old. His face is fair and fresh to see. His limbs are cast in beauty's mold. On dearly he loves me. One morn we strolled on our dry walk, our quiet house all full in view, and held such intermitted talk, as we are wont to do. My thoughts on former pleasures ran. I thought of Kilve's delightful shore, my pleasant home, when spring began, a long, long year before. A day it was when I could bear to think, and think, and think again, with so much happiness to spare I could not feel a pain. Why often chap its terms as a destit, to jest as a dust, which when I could bear to think as a dust. My boy was by my side, so slim and graceful in his rustic dress, and oftentimes I talked to him, in very idleness. The young lambs ran a pretty race, the morning sun shone bright and warm. Kilve, said I, was a pleasant place, and so is Liswyn Farm. My little boy, which like you more, I said, and took him by the arm, are home by Kilve's delightful shore, or here at Liswyn Farm? And tell me, had you rather be, I said, and held him by the arm, at Kilve's smooth shore by the green sea, or here at Liswyn Farm? In careless mood he looked at me, while still I held him by the arm, and said, At Kilve I'd rather be, than here at Liswyn Farm. Now, little Edward, say why so, my little Edward, tell me why. I cannot tell, I do not know, why this is strange, said I. For here are woods and green hills warm, there surely must some reason be, why you would change sweet Liswyn Farm, for Kilve by the green sea. At this my boy, so fair and slim, hung down his head, nor made reply, and 5 times did I say to him, Why, Edward, tell me why. His head he raised, there was in sight, it caught his eye, he saw it plain, upon the housetop, glittering bright, a broad and gilded vane. Then did the boy his tongue unlock, and thus to me he made reply, At Kilve there was no weathercock, and that's the reason why. Oh dearest, dearest boy, my heart, for better lore would seldom yearn, could I but teach the 100th part of what from thee I learn. We are 7. A simple child, dear brother Jim, that lightly draws its breath, and feels its life in every limb, what should it know of death? I met a little cottage girl, she was 8 years old, she said, her hair was thick with many a curl, that clustered round her head. She had a rustic woodland air, and she was wildly clad. Her eyes were fair and very fair, her beauty made me glad. Sisters and brothers, little maid, how many may you be, how many? 7 in all, she said, and wondering looked at me. And where are they, I pray you tell, she answered, 7 are we, and 2 of us at Conway dwell, and 2 are gone to sea. 2 of us in the churchyard lie, my sister and my brother, and in the churchyard cottage I dwell near them with my mother. You say that 2 at Conway dwell, and 2 are gone to sea, yet you are 7, I pray you tell, sweet maid, how this may be. Then did the little maid reply, 7 boys and girls are we, 2 of us in the churchyard lie, beneath the churchyard tree. You run about, my little maid, your limbs they are alive, if 2 are in the churchyard laid, then ye are only 5. Their graves are green, they may be seen, the little maid replied, 12 steps or more from my mother's door, and they are side by side. My stockings there, I often knit, my kerchief there I hem, and there upon the ground I sit and sing to them. And often after sunset, sir, when it is light and fair, I take my little porringer, and eat my supper there. The first that died was little Jane. In bed she moaning lay, till God released her of her pain, and then she went away. So in the churchyard she was laid, and all the summer dry, together round her grave we played, my brother John and I. And when the ground was white with snow, and I could run and slide, my brother John was forced to go, and he lies by her side. How many are you then, said I, if they too are in heaven? The little maiden did reply, O master, we are 7. But they are dead, those 2 are dead. Their spirits are in heaven. 'Twas throwing words away, for still the little maid would have her will, and said, Nay, we are 7. Well, lines, written in early spring. Here, I heard 1,000 blended notes, while in a grove I sate reclined, in that sweet mood when pleasant thoughts bring sad thoughts to the mind. To her fair works did nature link the human soul that through me ran, and much it grieved my heart to think, what man has made of man? Through primrose tufts, in that sweet bower, the periwinkle trailed its wreaths, and 'tis my faith that every flower enjoys the air it breathes. The birds around me hopped and played, their thoughts I cannot measure, but the least motion which they made, it seemed a thrill of pleasure. The budding twigs spread out their fan, to catch the breezy air, and I must think, do all I can, that there was pleasure there. If I these thoughts may not prevent, if such be of my creed the plan, have I not reason to lament? What man has made of man? The thorn. There is a thorn, it looks so old. In truth you'd find it hard to say, how it could ever have been young, it looks so old and gray. Not higher than a 2 years' child, it stands erect, this aged thorn. No leaves it has, no thorny points, it is a mass of knotted joints, a wretched thing forlorn. It stands erect, and like a stone, with lichens it is overgrown. Aye, like rock or stone, it is o'ergrown, with lichens to the very top, and hung with heavy tufts of moss, a melancholy crop. Up from the earth these mosses creep, and this poor thorn they clasp it round, so close you'd say that they were bent with plain and manifest intent to drag it to the ground. And all had joined in one endeavor to bury this poor thorn forever. High on a mountain's highest ridge, where oft the stormy winter gale cuts like a scythe, while through the clouds it sweeps from vale to vale. Not 5 yards from the mountain path, this thorn you on your left espy, and to the left 3 yards beyond, you see a little muddy pond, of water never dry. I've measured it from side to side, 'tis 3 feet long and 2 feet wide, or baxen to 2 feet wide. And close beside this aged thorn, there is a fresh and lovely sight, a beauteous heap, a hill of moss, just 1/2 foot in height. All lovely colors there you see, all colors that were ever seen, and mossy network too is there, as if by hand of lady fair. The work had woven been, and cups, the darlings of the eye, so deep is their vermilion dye. Ah me, what lovely tints are there, of olive green and scarlet bright, in spikes, in branches, and in stars, green, red, and pearly white. This heap of earth o'ergrown with moss, which close beside the thorn you see, so fresh in all its beauteous dyes, is like an infant's grave in size, as like can be, but never, never anywhere, an infant's grave was half so fair. Fie. Now would you see this aged thorn, this pond and beauteous hill of moss, you must take care and choose your time, the mountain when to cross, for oft there sits, between the heap, that's like an infant's grave in size, and that same pond of which I spoke, a woman in a scarlet cloak, and to herself she cries, O misery, O misery, O woe is me, O misery. Vie. At all times of the day and night, this wretched woman thither goes, and she is known to every star, and every wind that blows, and there beside the thorn she sits, when the blue daylight's in the skies, and when the whirlwind's on the hill, or frosty air is keen and still, and to herself she cries, O misery, O misery, O misery, O misery. I doesn't, she sticks the twaint, I doesn't, and the placed, O woe is me, O misery, misery. Vi. Now wherefore thus, by day and night, in rain, in tempest, and in snow, thus to the dreary mountain top, does this poor woman go? And why sits she beside the thorn, when the blue daylight's in the sky, or when the whirlwind's on the hill, or frosty air is keen and still. And wherefore does she cry? Oh, wherefore does she cry? Oh, wherefore? Wherefore? Tell me why. Does she repeat that doleful cry? I cannot tell, I wish I could, for the true reason no one knows, but if you'd gladly view the spot to which she goes, the heap that's like an infant's grave, the pond, aldand, thorn, so old and grey, pass by her door, 'tis seldom shut, all din, if you see her in her hut, all din, then to the spot away. I never heard of such as dare approach the spot when she is there. But wherefore to the mountain top can this unhappy woman go, whatever star is in the skies, whatever wind may blow? And, nay, rack your brain, 'tis all in vain, I'll tell you everything I know, but to the thorn, and to the pond, which is a little step beyond, I wish that you would go, perhaps when you are at the place, you something of her tale may trace. I'll give you the best help I can, before you up the mountain go, up to the dreary mountain top, I'll tell you all I know. 'Tis now some 22 years, since she, her name is Martha Ray, gave with a maiden's true good will, her company to Stephen Hill, and she was blithe and gay, and she was happy, happy still, whene'er she thought of Stephen Hill. And they had fixed the wedding day, the morning that must wed them both, but Stephen to another maid had sworn another oath, and with this other maid to church, unthinking Stephen went. Poor Martha! On that woeful day, a cruel, cruel fire, they say, into her bones was sent. It dried her body like a cinder, and almost turned her brain to tinder. They say, full 6 months after this, while yet the summer leaves were green, she to the mountain top would go, and there was often seen, 'tis said, a child was in her womb, as now to any eye was plain, she was with child, and she was mad, yet often she was sober, sad, from her exceeding pain. Oh me! 10,000 times I'd rather that he had died, that cruel father. Irksive. Sad case for such a brain to hold communion with a stirring child. Sad case, as you may think, for one who had a brain so wild. Last Christmas when we talked of this, old Farmer Simpson did maintain that in her womb the infant wrought about its mother's heart, and brought her senses back again, and when at last her time drew near, her looks were calm, her senses clear. XV. No more I know, I wish I did, and I would tell it all to you, for what became of this poor child, there's none that ever knew, and if a child was born or no, there's no one that could ever tell. And if 'twas born alive or dead, there's no one knows, as I have said. But some remember well that Martha Ray about this time would up the mountain often climb. And all that winter, when at night the wind blew from the mountain peak, 'twas worth your while, though in the dark, the churchyard path to seek, for many a time, and oft were heard, cries coming from the mountain head. Some plainly living voices were, and others, I've heard many swear, were voices of the dead. I cannot think, whate'er they say, they had to do with Martha Ray. XV. But that she goes to this old thorn, the thorn which I've described to you, and there sits in a scarlet cloak, I will be sworn is true. For one day with my telescope, to view the ocean wide and bright, when to this country first I came, ere I had heard of Martha's name, I climbed the mountain's height. A storm came on, and I could see no object higher than my knee. XVI. 'Twas mist and rain, and storm and rain, no screen, no fence could I discover, and then the wind, in faith, it was a wind full 10 times over. I looked around, I thought I saw a jutting crag, and off I ran, head foremost, through the driving rain, the shelter of the crag to gain, and, as I am a man, instead of jutting crag, I found a woman seated on the ground. XX. I did not speak. I saw her face, it was enough for me. I turned about and heard her cry, oh misery, and there she sits, until the moon, through half the clear blue sky will go, and when the little breezes make the waters of the pond to shake, as all the country know, she shudders, and you hear her cry, O misery, O misery, O misery. X. But what's the thorn, and what's the pond, and what's the hill of moss to her, and what's the creeping breeze that comes the little pond to stir? I cannot tell, but some will say she hanged her baby on the tree, some say she drowned it in the pond, which is a little step beyond, but all and each agree, the little babe was buried there, beneath that hill of moss so fair. EX. I've heard the scarlet moss is red with drops of that poor infant's blood, but kill a newborn infant thus, I do not think she could. Some say, if to the pond you go, and fix on it a steady view, the shadow of a babe you trace, a baby and a baby's face, and that it looks at you, when ere you look on it, 'tis plain, the baby looks at you again. Less xi, and some had sworn an oath that she should be to public justice brought, and for the little infant's bones, with spades they would have sought. But then the beauteous hill of moss, before their eyes began to stir, and for full 50 yards around, the grass it shook upon the ground. But all do still aver, the little babe is buried there, beneath that hill of moss so fair. Xei. I cannot tell how this may be, but plain it is, the thorn is bound with heavy tufts of moss that strive to drag it to the ground. And this I know, full many a time, when she was on the mountain high, by day, and in the silent night, when all the stars shone clear and bright, that I have heard her cry, O misery, O misery, O misery. O woe is me, O misery. The last of the flock. In distant countries I have been, and yet I have not often seen a healthy man, a man full grown, weep in the public roads alone. But such a one on English ground, and in the broad highway I met. Along the broad highway he came, his cheeks with tears were wet. Sturdy he seemed, though he was sad, and in his arms a lamb he had. All barest, a lamb he had. He saw me, and he turned aside, as if he wished himself to hide, then with his coat he made essay to wipe those briny tears away. I followed him, and said, My friend, what ails you? Wherefore weep you so? Shame on me, sir. This lusty lamb, he makes my tears to flow. Today, I fetched him from the rock. He is the last of all my flock. When I was young, a single man, and after youthful follies ran, though little given to care and thought, yet so it was, a ewe I bought, and other sheep from her. I raised, as healthy sheep as you might see, and then I married, and was rich, as I could wish to be. Of sheep I numbered a full score, and every year increases my store. Year after year, my stock it grew, and from this one, this single ewe, full 50 comely sheep I raised, as sweet a flock as ever grazed. Upon the mountain did they feed, they throve, and we at home did thrive. 10 children, sir, had I to feed, hard labor in a time of need. My pride was tamed, and in our grief, I of the parish asked relief. They said I was a wealthy man, my sheep upon the mountain fed, and it was fit that thence I took whereof to buy us bread. Do this, how can we give to you? They cried, what to the poor is due? I sold a sheep as they had said, and bought my little children bread, and they were healthy with their food. For me, it never did me good. A woeful time it was for me, to see the end of all my gains, the pretty flock which I had reared, with all my care and pains, to see it melt like snow away. For me, it was a woeful day. Another still, and still another, a little lamb and then its mother. It was a vein that never stopped, like blood drops from my heart they dropped. Till 30 were not left alive. They dwindled, one by one, and I may say that many a time I wish they all were gone. They dwindled one by one away. For me it was a woeful day. To wicked deeds I was inclined, and wicked fancies crossed my mind, and every man I chanced to see, I thought he knew some ill of me. No peace, no comfort could I find, no ease, within doors or without, and crazily and wearily I went my work about. Oft times I thought to run away, for me it was a woeful day. Sir, 'twas a precious flock to me, as dear as my own children be, for daily with my growing store, I loved my children more and more. Alas, it was an evil time. God cursed me in my sore distress, I prayed. Yet every day I thought I loved my children less, and every week and every day my flock, it seemed to melt away. They dwindled, sir, sad sight to see, from 10 to 5, from 5 to 3, a lamb, a wether, and a ewe, and then at last from 3 to 2. And of my 50, yesterday I had but only one, and here it lies upon my arm. Alas, and I have none. Today I fetched it from the rock, it is the last of all my flock. The dungeon. And this place our forefathers made for man. This is the process of our love and wisdom, to each poor brother who offends against us, most innocent perhaps, and what if guilty? Is this the only cure? Merciful God? Each poor and natural outlet shriveled up, by ignorance and parching poverty, his energies roll back upon his heart, and stagnate and corrupt, till changed to poison, they break out on him, like a loathsome plague spot. Then we call in our pampered mountebanks, and this is their best cure. Uncomforted, and friendless solitude, groaning and tears, and savage faces, at the clanking hour, seen through the steams and vapor of his dungeon, by the lamp's dismal twilight, so he lies, circled with evil, till his very soul unmolds its essence, hopelessly deformed, by sights of evermore deformity. With other ministrations thou, O Nature, healest thy wandering and distempered child. Thou pourest on him thy soft influences, thy sunny hues, fair forms, and breathing sweets, thy melodies of woods and winds and waters, till he relent, and can no more endure, to be a jarring and a dissonant thing amid this general dance and minstrelsy, but, bursting into tears, wins back his way, his angry spirit healed and harmonized, by the benignant touch of love and beauty, constant. The mad mother. Her eyes are wild, her head is bare, the sun has burnt her coal-black hair, her eyebrows have a rusty stain, and she came far from over the main. She has a baby on her arm, or else she were alone, and underneath the haystack warm, and on the greenwood stone, she talked and sung the woods among, and it was in the English tongue. Sweet babe, they say that I am mad, but nay, my heart is far too glad, and I am happy when I sing, full many a sad and doleful thing. Then, lovely baby, do not fear, I pray thee have no fear of me, but, safe as in a cradle, hear my lovely baby. Thou shalt be, to thee I know too much I owe, I cannot work thee any woe, I cannot work thee any woe. A fire was once within my brain, and in my head a dull, dull pain, and fiendish faces, 1, 2, 3, hung at my breasts, and pulled at me. But then there came a sight of joy, it came at once to do me good. I waked, and saw my little boy of flesh and blood. O joy for me that sight to see, for he was here, and only he. Suck, little babe, oh suck again, it cools my blood, it cools my brain, thy lips I feel them, baby, they draw from my heart the pain away. Oh, press me with thy little hand, it loosens something at my chest, about that tight and deadly band I feel thy little fingers pressed. The breeze I see is in the tree, it comes to cool my babe and me. Oh, love me, little boy. Thou art thy mother's only joy, and do not dread the waves below. When o'er the sea rock's edge we go, the high crag cannot work me harm, nor leaping torrents when they howl. The babe I carry on my arm, he saves for me my precious soul. Then happy lie, for blessed am I, without me my sweet babe would die. Then do not fear, my boy, for thee, bold as a lion I will be, and I will always be thy guide, through hollow snows and rivers wide. I'll build an Indian bower, I know, the leaves that make the softest bed, and if from me thou wilt not go, but still be true till I am dead, my pretty thing, then thou shalt sing, as merry as the birds in spring, or, in spring. Thy father cares not for my breast, 'tis thine, sweet baby, there to rest, 'tis all thine own, and if its hue be changed, that was so fair to view, 'tis fair enough for thee, my dove. My beauty, little child, is flown, but thou wilt live with me in love, and what if my poor cheek be brown? 'Tis well for me, thou canst not see, how pale and wan it else would be. Dread not their taunts, my little life, I am thy father's wedded wife, and underneath the spreading tree, we two will live in honesty. If his sweet boy he could forsake, with me he never would have stayed. From him no harm my babe can take, but he, poor man, is wretched made, and every day we two will pray for him that's gone and far away. I'll teach my boy the sweetest things, I'll teach him how the owlet sings. My little babe, thy lips are still, and thou hast almost sucked thy fill. Where art thou gone, my own dear child? What wicked looks are those I see? Alas, alas, alas! That look so wild, it never, never came from me. If thou art mad, my pretty lad, then I must be forever sad. Oh, smile on me, my little lamb, for I thy own dear mother am. My love for thee has well been tried, I've sought thy father far and wide. I know the poisons of the shade, I know the earth, nuts fit for food, then pretty dear, be not afraid, we'll find thy father in the wood. And there, my babe, we'll live for aye. The Idiot Boy. 'Tis 8 o'clock, a clear March night, the moon is up, the sky is blue, the owlet in the moonlight air, he shouts, from nobody knows where, he lengthens out his lonely shout, halloo, 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 a long halloo. Why bustle thus about your door? What means this bustle, Betty Foy? Why are you in this mighty fret? And why on horseback have you set him whom you love, your idiot boy? Beneath the moon that shines so bright, till she is tired, let Betty Foy, with girt and stirrup fiddle faddle, but wherefore set upon a saddle, him whom she loves, her idiot boy? There's scarce a soul that's out of bed, good Betty, put him down again, his lips with joy, they burr at you, but Betty, what has he to do, with stirrup, saddle, or with rein? The world will say, 'tis very idle, bethink you of the time of night, there's not a mother, no not one, but when she hears what you have done, oh, Betty, she'll be in a fright. But Betty's bent on her intent, for her good neighbor, Susan Gale, old Susan, she who dwells alone, is sick, and makes a piteous moan, as if her very life would fail. There's not a house within a mile, no hand to help them in distress, old Susan lies abed in pain, and sorely puzzled are the twain, for what she ails they cannot guess. And Betty's husband's at the wood, where by the week he doth abide, a woodman in the distant vale, there's none to help poor Susan Gale, what must be done, what will betide? And Betty from the lane has fetched her pony, that is mild and good, whether he be in joy or pain, feeding at will along the lane, or bringing faggots from the wood. And he is all in travelling trim, and by the moonlight Betty Foy has up upon the saddle set, the like was never heard of, yet, him whom she loves, her idiot boy. And he must post without delay, across the bridge that's in the dale, and by the church and o'er the down, to bring a doctor from the town, or she will die, old Susan Gale. There is no need of boot or spur, there is no need of whip or wand, for Johnny has his holly bough, and with a hurly-burly now, he shakes the green bough in his hand. And Betty o'er and o'er has told the boy, who is her best delight, both what to follow, what to shun, what do, and what to leave undone, how turn to left, and how to right. And Betty's most especial charge was, Johnny, Johnny, mind that you come home again, nor stop at all, come home again, whate'er befall, my Johnny do, I pray you do. To this did Johnny answer make, both with his head and with his hand, and proudly shook the bridle too, and then, his words were not a few, which Betty well could understand. And now that Johnny is just going, though Betty's in a mighty flurry, she gently pats the pony's side, on which her idiot boy must ride, and seems no longer in a hurry. But when the pony moved his legs, oh, then for the poor idiot boy, for joy he cannot hold the bridle, for joy his head and heels are idle, he's idle all for very joy. And while the pony moves his legs, in Johnny's left hand you may see, the green boughs motionless and dead, the moon that shines above his head, is not more still and mute than he. His heart it was so full of glee, that till full 50 yards were gone, he quite forgot his holly whip, and all his skill in horsemanship, Oh, happy, happy, happy John. And Betty's standing at the door, and Betty's face with joy o'erflows, proud of herself and proud of him. She sees him in his traveling trim, how quietly her Johnny goes. The silence of her idiot boy, what hopes it sends to Betty's heart. He's at the guidepost, he turns right, she watches till he's out of sight, and Betty will not then depart. Burr, burr, now Johnny's lips, they burr as loud as any mill or near it. Meek as a lamb the pony moves, and Johnny makes the noise he loves, and Betty listens, glad to hear it. Away she hies to Susan Gale, and Johnny's in a merry tune. The owlets hoot, the owlets curr, and Johnny's lips they burr, 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 and on he goes beneath the moon. His steed and he right well agree, for of this pony there's a rumor, that should he lose his eyes and ears, and should he live 1,000 years, he never will be out of humor. But then he is a horse that thinks, and when he thinks his pace is slack, now, though he knows poor Johnny well, yet for his life he cannot tell what he has got upon his back. So through the moonlight lanes they go, and far into the moonlight dale, and by the church, and o'er the down, to bring a doctor from the town, to comfort poor old Susan Gale. And Betty, now at Susan's side, is in the middle of her story, what comfort Johnny soon will bring, with many a most diverting thing, of Johnny's wit and Johnny's glory. And Betty still at Susan's side. By this time she's not quite so flurried, demure, with porringer and plate. She sits, as if in Susan's fate, her life and soul were buried. But Betty, poor good woman, she, you plainly in her face may read it, could lend out of that moment's store 5 years of happiness or more, to any that might need it. But yet I guess that now and then, with Betty all was not so well, and to the road she turns her ears, and thence full many a sound she hears, which she to Susan will not tell. Poor Susan moans, poor Susan groans, as sure as there's a moon in heaven, cries Betty, he'll be back again, they'll both be here, 'tis almost 10, they'll both be here before 11. Poor Susan moans, poor Susan groans, the clock gives warning for 11, 'tis on the stroke. If Johnny's near, quoth Betty, he will soon be here, as sure as there's a moon in heaven. The clock is on the stroke of 12, and Johnny is not yet in sight. The moon's in heaven, as Betty sees, but Betty is not quite at ease, and Susan has a dreadful night. And Betty, half an hour ago, on Johnny vile reflections cast, a little idle sauntering thing, with other names, an endless string, but now that time is gone and past. And Betty's drooping at the heart, that happy time all past and gone, how can it be he is so late? The doctor he has made him wait, Susan, they'll both be here anon. And Susan's growing worse and worse, and Betty's in a sad quandary, and then there's nobody to say if she must go or she must stay, she's in a sad quandary. The clock is on the stroke of 1, but neither doctor nor his guide appear along the moonlight road, there's neither horse nor man abroad. Betty's still at Susan's side. And Susan, she begins to fear, of sad mischances not a few, that Johnny may perhaps be drowned, or lost perhaps, and never found, which they must both for ever rue. She prefaced half a hint of this, with, God forbid it should be true. At the first word that Susan said, cried Betty, rising from the bed, Susan, I'd gladly stay with you. I must be gone. I must away. Consider, Johnny's but half wise, Susan, we must take care of him, if he is hurt in life or limb. Oh, God forbid, poor Susan cries. What can I do, says Betty, going. What can I do to ease your pain? Good Susan, tell me, and I'll stay. I fear you're in a dreadful way, but I shall soon be back again. Good Betty, go, good Betty, go. There's nothing that can ease my pain. Then off she hies, but with a prayer, that God poor Susan's life would spare, till she comes back again. So, through the moonlight lane she goes, and far into the moonlight dale, and how she ran, and how she walked, and all that to herself she talked, would surely be a tedious tale. In high and low, above, below, in great and small, in round and square, In tree and tower was Johnny seen, in bush and brake, in black and green, 'twas Johnny, Johnny, everywhere. She's past the bridge that's in the dale, and now the thought torments her sore. Johnny perhaps his horse forsook, to hunt the moon that's in the brook, and never will be heard of more. And now she's high upon the down, alone amid a prospect wide. There's neither Johnny nor his horse, among the fern or in the gorse, there's neither doctor nor his guide. O saints, what is become of him? Perhaps he's climbed into an oak, where he will stay till he is dead, as dead, or sadly he has been misled, and joined the wandering gypsy folk. Or him that wicked ponies carried, to the dark cave, the goblin's hall, or in the castle he's pursuing, among the ghosts, his own undoing, or playing with the waterfall. At poor old Susan then she railed, while to the town she posts away. If Susan had not been so ill, alas, I should have had him still, my Johnny, till my dying day. Poor Betty, in this sad distemper, the doctor's self would hardly spare. Unworthy things she talked and wild, even he of cattle. The most mild, the pony had his share. And now she's got into the town, and to the doctor's door she hies. 'Tis silence all on every side. The town so long, the town so wide, is silent as the skies. I used to find to the first, I used to find oh. And now she's at the doctor's door. She lifts the knocker, rap, rap, rap. The doctor at the casement shows his glimmering eyes that peep and doze, and one hand rubs his old nightcap. Oh, doctor, doctor, where's my Johnny? I'm here, what isn't you want with me? Oh, sir, you know I'm Betty Foy, and I have lost my poor dear boy. You know him, Kim. Him you often see. He's not so wise as some folks be. The devil take his wisdom, said the doctor, looking somewhat grim. What woman should I know of him? And, grumbling, he went back to bed. Oh, woe is me, oh, woe is me, here will I die, here will I die, I thought to find my Johnny here. But he is neither far nor near, oh, what a wretched mother I. She stops, she stands, she looks about, which way to turn she cannot tell. Poor Betty, it would ease her pain if she had heart to knock again, for Berra, the clock strikes 3, a dismal knell. Then up along the town she hies, no wonder if her senses fail. This piteous news so much it shocked her, she quite forgot to send the doctor, to comfort poor old Susan Gale. And now she's high upon the down, and she can see a mile of road. Oh, cruel, I'm almost 80, such night as this was ne'er before, there's not a single soul abroad. She listens, but she cannot hear. The foot of horse, the voice of man, the streams with softest sound are flowing, the grass you almost hear it growing, you hear it now if e'er you can. The owlets, through the long blue night, are shouting to each other still, fond lovers, yet not quite hobnob, they lengthen out the tremulous sob that echoes far from hill to hill. Poor Betty now has lost all hope, her thoughts are bent on deadly sin, a green-grown pond she just has passed, and from the brink she hurries fast, lest she should drown herself therein. And now she sits her down and weeps, such tears she never shed before. Oh dear, dear pony, my sweet joy, oh carry back my idiot boy, and we will ne'er o'erload thee more. A thought is come into her head. The pony he is mild and good, and we have always used him well. Perhaps he's gone along the dell, and carried Johnny to the wood. Then up she springs as if on wings. She thinks no more of deadly sin. If Betty 50 ponds should see, the last of all her thoughts would be to drown herself therein. O reader, now that I might tell what Johnny and his horse are doing, what they've been doing all this time, oh could I put it into rhyme, a most delightful tale pursuing. Perhaps, and no unlikely thought, he with his pony now doth roam the cliffs and peaks so high that are to lay his hands upon a star, and in his pocket bring it home. Perhaps he's turned himself about, his face unto his horse's tail, and still and mute, in wonder lost, all like a silent horseman, ghost, he travels on along the vale. And now perhaps he's hunting sheep, a fierce and dreadful hunter he. Yon valley, that's so trim and green, in 5 months' time, should he be seen, a desert wilderness will be. Perhaps, with head and heels on fire, and like the very soul of evil, he's galloping away, away, and so he'll gallop on, for I, the bane of all that dread the devil, I to the Muses have been bound, these 14 years, by strong indentures. O gentle Muses, let me tell but half of what to him befell, for sure he met with strange adventures. O gentle Muses, is this kind? Why will ye thus my suit repel? Why of your further aid bereave me, and can ye thus unfriended leave me, ye Muses, whom I love so well? Who's yon, that, near the waterfall, which thunders down with headlong force, beneath the moon, yet shining fair, as careless as if nothing were, sits upright on a feeding horse? Unto his horse, that's feeding free, he seems, I think, the rein to give. Of moon or stars he takes no heed, of such we, in romances read, 'tis Johnny, Johnny, as I live. And that's the very pony too. Where is she? Where is Betty Foy? She hardly can sustain her fears, the roaring waterfall she hears, and cannot find her idiot boy. Your pony's worth his weight in gold. Then calm your terrors, Betty Foy, she's coming from among the trees, and now, all full in view, she sees him whom she loves, her idiot boy. And Betty sees the pony too. Why stand you thus, good Betty Foy? It is no goblin, 'tis no ghost, 'tis he whom you so long have lost, he whom you love, your idiot boy. She looks again, her arms are up, she screams, she cannot move for joy, she darts as with a torrent's force, she almost has overturned the horse, and fast she holds her idiot boy. And Johnny burrs and laughs aloud, whether in cunning or in joy, I cannot tell, but while he laughs, Betty a drunken pleasure quaffs, to hear again her idiot boy. And now she's at the pony's tail, and now she's at the pony's head, on that side now, and now on this, and almost stifled with her bliss, a few sad tears does Betty shed. She kisses o'er and o'er again, him whom she loves, her idiot boy. She's happy here, she's happy there, she is uneasy everywhere, her limbs are all alive with joy. She pats the pony, where or when she knows not, happy Betty Foy. The little pony glad may be, but he is milder far than she, you hardly can perceive his joy. Oh, Johnny, never mind the doctor, you've done your best and that is all. She took the reins when this was said, and gently turned the pony's head from the loud waterfall. By this the stars were almost gone, the moon was setting on the hill, so pale you scarcely looked at her, the little birds began to stir, though yet their tongues were still. The pony, Betty, and her boy wend slowly through the woody dale, and who is she betimes abroad, that hobbles up the steep rough road? Who is it, but old Susan Gale? Long Susan lay deep lost in thought, and many dreadful fears beset her, both for her messenger and nurse, and as her mind grew worse and worse, her body it grew better. She turned, she tossed herself in bed, on all sides doubts and terrors met her, point after point did she discuss, and while her mind was fighting thus, her body still grew better. Alas, what is become of them? These fears can never be endured. I'll to the wood. The word scarce said, did Susan rise up from her bed, as if by magic cured. Away she posts up hill and down, and to the wood at length is come. She spies her friends, she shouts a greeting, oh me, it is a merry meeting, as ever was in Christendom. The owls have hardly sung their last, while our 4 travelers homeward wend. The owls have hooted all night long, and with the owls began my song, and with the owls must end. For while they all were traveling home, cried Betty, tell us, Johnny, do, where all this long night you have been, what you have heard, what you have seen, and Johnny, mind you tell us true. Now Johnny all night long had heard the owls in tuneful concert strive. No doubt too he the moon had seen, for in the moonlight he had been, from 8 o'clock till 5. And thus to Betty's question he made answer, like a traveler bold, his very words I give to you. The cocks did crow to who, and the sun did shine so cold. Thus answered Johnny in his glory, and that was all his travel story. Lines written near Richmond, upon the Thames, at evening. How rich the wave, in front, impressed, with evening twilight's summer hues, while, facing thus the crimson west, the boat her silent path pursues, and see how dark the backward stream, a little moment past, so smiling, and still, perhaps, with faithless gleam, some other loiterer beguiling. Such views the youthful bard allure, but, heedless of the following gloom, he deems their colours shall endure, till peace go with him to the tomb. And let him nurse his fond deceit, and what if he must die in sorrow? Who would not cherish dreams so sweet, though grief and pain may come tomorrow? Glide gently, thus forever glide, O Thames, that other bards may see as lovely visions by thy side. As now, fair river, come to me, O glide, fair stream, forever so, thy quiet soul on all bestowing, till all our minds forever flow, as thy deep waters now are flowing. Vain thought, yet be as now thou art, that in thy waters may be seen the image of a poet's heart, how bright, how solemn, how serene. Such heart did once the poet bless, who, pouring here a three's later ditty, could find no refuge from distress, but in the milder grief of pity. Remembrance, as we glide along, for him suspend the dashing oar, and pray that never child of song may know his freezing sorrows more. How calm, how still! The only sound, the dripping of the oars suspended. The evening darkness gathers round, by virtue's holiest powers attended. All the fighting, or breast. 3. Collins's Ode on the Death of Thomson, the last written, I believe, of the poems which were published during his lifetime. This ode is also alluded to in the next stanza. 1 and 1000 jury. Expostulation and reply. Why, William, on that old grey stone, thus for the length of half a day? Why, William, sit you thus alone, and dream your time away? Where are your books, that light bequeathed to beings else forlorn and blind? Up, up, and drink this spirit breathed from dead men to their kind. You look round on your mother earth, as if she for no purpose bore you, as if you were her firstborn birth, and none had lived before you. One morning thus, by Esthwaite Lake, when life was sweet, I knew not why, to me my good friend Matthew spake, and thus I made reply. 1 Peas. The eye it cannot choose but see, we cannot bid the ear be still, our bodies feel, where'er they be, against or with our will. Against or with our will. Nor less I deem that there are powers, which of themselves our minds impress, that we can feed this mind of ours in a wise passiveness. Think you, mid all this mighty sum of things forever speaking, that nothing of itself will come, but we must still be seeking? Then ask not wherefore. Here, alone, conversing as I may, I sit upon this old grey stone, and dream my time away. The tables turned. An evening scene, on the same subject. Up, up, my friend, and clear your looks. Why all this toil and trouble? Up, up, my friend, and quit your books, or surely you'll grow double. The sun above the mountain's head, a freshening lustre mellow, through all the long green fields has spread, his first sweet evening yellow. Books. 'Tis a dull and endless strife. Come, hear the woodland linnet, how sweet his music, on my life, there's more of wisdom in it. And hark, how blithe the throstle sings, and he is no mean preacher, come forth into the light of things, let nature be your teacher. She has a world of ready wealth, our minds and hearts to bless, spontaneous wisdom breathed by health, truth breathed by cheerfulness. One impulse from a vernal wood may teach you more of man, of moral evil and of good, than all the sages can. Sweet is the lore which nature brings, our meddling intellect misshapes the beauteous forms of things we murder to dissect. Enough of science and of art. Close up these barren leaves, come forth, and bring with you a heart that watches and receives. Old man traveling, animal tranquility, and decay, a sketch. A sketch. The little hedgerow birds that peck along the road regard him not. He travels on, and in his face, his step, his gait is one expression. Every limb, his look and bending figure, all bespeak a man who does not move with pain, but moves with thought. Hoarded, high seas. Hoarded by seas dud. Hoarded by seas dud, for every kind. Hoarded by seas dud. Hoarded by seas dud. Hoarded by seas dud God, I seas dud. Hoarded by. He is one by whom all effort seems forgotten, one to whom long patience has such mild composure given, that patience now doth seem a thing of which he hath no need. He is by nature led to peace so perfect that the young behold, with envy, what the old man hardly feels. I asked him whither he was bound, and what the object of his journey. He replied, Sir, I am going many miles to take a last leave of my son, a mariner who from a sea fight has been brought to Falmouth, and there is dying in an hospital. The complaint of a forsaken Indian woman. When a northern Indian, from sickness, is unable to continue his journey with his companions, he is left behind, covered over with deerskins or peeble, or, if deerskins, and is supplied with water, food, and fuel if the situation of the place will afford it. He is informed of the track which his companions intend to pursue, and if he is unable to follow or overtake them, he perishes alone in the desert, unless he should have the good fortune to fall in with some other tribes of Indians. It is unnecessary to add that the females are equally, or still more, exposed to the same fate. See that very interesting work, Herna's Journey, from Hudson's Bay to the Northern Ocean. When the northern lights, as the same writer informs us, vary their position in the air, they make a rustling and a crackling noise. This circumstance is alluded to in the first stanza of the following poem. Before I see another day, oh, let my body die away. In sleep I heard the northern gleams. The stars they were among my dreams. In sleep did I behold the skies. I saw the crackling flashes drive, and yet they are upon my eyes, and yet I am alive. Before I see another day, oh, let my body die away. My fire is dead, it knew no pain, yet is it dead, and I remain. All stiff with ice the ashes lie, and they are dead, and I will die. When I was well, I wished to live, for clothes, for warmth, for food, and fire, but they to me no joy can give, no pleasure now, and no desire. Then here, contented, will I lie. Alone, I cannot fear to die. Alas, you might have dragged me on another day, a single one. Too soon despair o'er me prevailed, too soon my heartless spirit failed. When you were gone, my limbs were stronger, and oh, how grievously I rue, that, afterwards, a little longer, my friends, I did not follow you. For strong and without pain I lay, my friends, when you were gone away. My child, they gave thee to another, a woman who was not thy mother. When from my arms my babe they took, on me, how strangely did he look. Through his whole body something ran, a most strange something did I see, inception, as if he strove to be a man, that he might pull the sledge for me. And then he stretched his arms, how wild! Oh mercy, like a little child. My little joy, my little pride, in 2 days more I must have died. Then do not weep and grieve for me, I feel I must have died with thee, O wind that o'er my head art flying. The way my friends their course did bend, I should not feel the pain of dying, could I with thee a message send. Too soon, my friends, you went away, for I had many things to say. I'll follow you across the snow, you travel heavily and slow, in spite of all my weary pain, I'll look upon your tents again. My fire is dead and snowy white, the water which beside it stood, the wolf has come to me tonight, and he has stolen away my food. For ever left alone am I, then wherefore should I fear to die? My journey will be shortly run, I shall not see another sun, I cannot lift my limbs to know if they have any life or no. My poor forsaken child, if I, for once could have thee close to me, with happy heart I then would die, and my last thoughts would happy be, I feel my body die away, I shall not see another day. The Convict. The glory of evening was spread through the west, on the slope of a mountain I stood, while the joy that precedes the calm season of rest rang loud through the meadow and wood. And must we then part from a dwelling so fair? In the pain of my spirit I said, and with a deep sadness I turned to repair to the cell where the convict is laid. The thick-ribbed walls that o'ershadow the gate resound, and the dungeons unfold. I pause, and at length, through the glimmering grate, that outcast of pity behold. His black matted head on his shoulder is bent, and deep is the sigh of his breath, and with steadfast dejection his eyes are intent on the fetters that link him to death. 'Tis sorrow enough on that visage to gaze, that body dismisses from his care, yet my fancy has pierced to his heart, and portrays more terrible images there. His bones are consumed, and his life-blood is dried, with wishes the past to undo, and his crime, through the pains that o'erwhelm him, descried, still blackens and grows on his view. When from the dark synod or blood-reeking field, to his chamber, the monarch is led, all soothers of sense their soft virtue shall yield, and quietness pillow his head. But if grief, self-consumed in oblivion would doze, and conscience her tortures appease, mid tumult and uproar this man must repose, in the comfortless vault of disease. When his fetters at night have so pressed on his limbs, that the weight can no longer be borne, if, while a half-slumber his memory bedims, the wretch on his pallet should turn, while the jail mastiff howls at the dull clanking chain, from the roots of his hair there shall start 1,000 sharp punctures of cold sweating pain, and terror shall leap at his heart. But now he half raises his deep-sunken eye, and the motion unsettles a tear, the silence of sorrow it seems to supply, and asks of me why I am here. Poor victim, no idle intruder has stood, with o'erweening complacence our state to compare, but one, whose first wish is the wish to be good, is come as a brother thy sorrows to share. At thy name though, compassion her nature resign, though in virtue's proud mouth thy report be a stain, my care, if the arm of the mighty were mine, would plant thee where yet thou mightst blossom again. Lines written, a few miles above Tintern Abbey, on revisiting the banks of the Wye, during a tour, July 13, 1798. 5 years have passed, 5 summers, with the length of 5 long winters, and again I hear these waters rolling from their mountain springs, with a sweet inland murmur. Chaste and 460'd, once again do I behold these steep and lofty cliffs, which on a wild secluded scene impress thoughts of more deep seclusion, and connect the landscape with the quiet of the sky. The day is come when I again repose, here, under this dark sycamore, and view these plots of cottage ground, these orchard tufts, which, at this season, with their unripe fruits, among the woods and copses lose themselves, nor, with their green and simple hue, disturb the wild green landscape. Once again I see these hedgerows, hardly hedgerows, little lines of sportive wood run wild, these pastoral farms, green to the very door, and wreaths of smoke sent up in silence from among the trees, with some uncertain notice, as might seem, of vagrant dwellers in the houseless woods, or of some hermit's cave, where by his fire the hermit sits alone. Though absent long, these forms of beauty have not been to me, as is a landscape to a blind man's eye, all feel, heart. But oft, in lonely rooms, and mid the din of towns and cities, I have owed to them, in hours of weariness, sensation sweet, felt in the blood, and felt along the heart, and passing even into my pure mind, with tranquil restoration, feelings too, of unremembered pleasure, such, perhaps, as may have had no trivial influence on that best portion of a good man's life, his little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. Nor less, I trust, to them I may have owed another gift, of aspect more sublime. That blessed mood, in which the burthen of the mystery, in which the heavy and the weary weight of all this unintelligible world is lightened. That serene and blessed mood, in which the affections gently lead us on, until, the breath of this corporeal frame, and even the motion of our human blood almost suspended, we are laid asleep, in body, and become a living soul. While with an eye made quiet by the power of harmony and the deep power of joy, we see into the life of things. If this be but a vain belief, yet, oh, how oft, in darkness and amid the many shapes of joyless daylight, when the fretful stir, unprofitable, and the fever of the world have hung upon the beatings of my heart, how oft in spirit have I turned to thee, O Sylvan, why? Thou wanderer through the woods, how often has my spirit turned to thee? And now, with gleams of half-extinguished thought, with many recognitions dim and faint, and somewhat of a sad perplexity, the picture of the mind revives again, while here I stand, not only with the sense of present pleasure, but with pleasing thoughts that in this moment there is life and food for future years. And so I dare to hope, though changed, no doubt, from what I was, when first I came among these hills, when like a roe I bounded o'er the mountains, by the sides of the deep rivers, and the lonely streams, wherever nature led, more like a man, flying from something that he dreads, than one who sought the thing he loved. For nature then, the coarser pleasures of my boyish days, and their glad animal movements all gone by, to me was all in all. I cannot paint what then I was. I cannot paint what then I was. The sounding cataract haunted me like a passion, the tall rock, the mountain, and the deep and gloomy wood, their colors and their forms, were then to me an appetite, a feeling, and a love, that had no need of a remoter charm, by thought supplied, or any interest unborrowed from the eye. That time is past, and all its aching joys are now no more, and all its dizzy raptures, not for this faint eye, nor mourn nor murmur, other gifts, have followed, for such loss I would believe abundant recompense. For I have learned to look on nature, not as in the hour of thoughtless youth, but hearing oftentimes the still, sad music of humanity, not harsh nor grating, though of ample power, to chasten and subdue. And I have felt a presence that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts, one fist, a sense sublime, of something far more deeply interfused, whose dwelling is the light of setting suns, and the round ocean, and the living air, and the blue sky, and in the mind of man, a motion and a spirit, that impels all thinking things, all objects of all thought, and rolls through all things. Therefore am I still, a lover of the meadows and the woods and mountains and of all that we behold, from this green earth of all the mighty world of eye and ear, both what they half create, 5, and what perceive. Well pleased to recognize, in nature and the language of the sense, the anchor of my purest thoughts, the nurse, the guide, the guardian of my heart and soul, of all my moral being. Nor, perchance, if I were not thus taught, should I the more suffer my genial spirits to decay, for thou art with me, here, upon the banks of this fair river. Thou, my dearest friend, my dear, dear friend, and in thy voice I catch the language of my former heart, and read my former pleasures in the shooting lights of thy wild eyes. Oh, yet a little wild, in thee what I was once, my dear, dear sister. And this prayer I make, knowing that nature never did betray the heart that loved her. 'Tis her privilege, through all the years of this our life, to lead from joy to joy, for she can so inform the mind that is within us, so impress with quietness and beauty, and so feed with lofty thoughts, that neither evil tongues, rash judgments, nor the sneers of selfish men, nor greetings where no kindness is, nor all the dreary intercourse of daily life, shall e'er prevail against us, or disturb our cheerful faith that all which we behold is full of blessings. Therefore, let the moon shine on thee in thy solitary walk, and let the misty mountain winds be free to blow against thee, and in after years, when these wild ecstasies shall be matured, into a sober pleasure, when thy mind shall be a mansion for all lovely forms, thy memory be as a dwelling place for all sweet sounds and harmonies. Oh, its comedy, its cons on tier. Then, if solitude, or fear, or pain, or grief, should be thy portion, with what healing thoughts of tender joy wilt thou remember me, and these my exhortations? Nor perchance, if I should be where I no more can hear thy voice, nor catch from thy wild eyes these gleams of past existence, wilt thou then forget that on the banks of this delightful stream we stood together, and that I, so long a worshipper of nature, hither came, unwearied in that service? Rather say, with warmer love, oh, with far deeper zeal of holier love. Nor wilt thou then forget that after many wanderings, many years of absence, these steep woods and lofty cliffs, and this green pastoral landscape, were to me more dear, both for themselves and for thy sake. 4. The river is not affected by the tides a few miles above Tintern. All verse, section, and miles above Tintern. 5. This line has a close resemblance to an admirable line of Young, the exact expression of which I cannot recollect. End. Thanks for listening to Lyrical Ballads 1798 by William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge.